A breakthrough for scientists after they had a 20-minute conversation with a humpback whale.
An animal bigger than a school bus with perhaps the most sophisticated form of communication that has ever existed.
An AI just translated what sperm whales have been saying to each other for 30 million years. The first decoded message was 3 words: I am here. That is not the part the researchers were unprepared for. Buried inside 9,000 recordings was something else. A message about us.
What we found is that, in a sense, their codas, these groups of clicks, are very similar to human vowel.
And once they understood what the whales had been transmitting across every ocean on Earth, an MIT researcher went silent and refused to publish part of the finding. The day a whale talked back.
These weren't the typical harmonious whale songs that I'd been accustomed to. These sounded more like digital data transfer.
Off the coast of Alaska, in 2023, a small research boat sits quietly on the water. The scientists on board are about to attempt something never done before in the history of human science. They lower an underwater speaker into the ocean and play a sound into the deep. The sound is a humpback whale contact call, the specific signal humpbacks use to announce their presence to each other, the closest thing in whale language to a spoken hello. The recording was captured the day before from a small group of whales in the area, a group that included a 38-year-old female named Twain. They may be playing Twain's own voice back to her. Then they wait. Twain surfaces. She moves toward the boat and circles it slowly. She opens her mouth and sings back. Real humpback vocalizations directed straight at the boat. In direct response to the call, the scientist just played. She does not stop at one reply. Every time the scientists play the contact call through the speaker, Twain answers back with her own sounds. The scientists play, Twain replies. The scientists play again. Twain replies again. This goes on for 20 full minutes. A wild whale in the open ocean holding a back and forth vocal exchange with humans on a boat. Lead scientist Dr. Brenda McCowan from UC Davis says afterward that they believe this was the first communicative exchange between humans and humpback whales in the humpback language. The shock is not that she made sounds back, it is the timing. Between each call the scientists played, there is a natural pause, the specific gap a humpback leaves mid-conversation before the other whale is supposed to reply. Twain waits for that pause every single time and fills it with her response, the way a person waits for the other speaker to finish before they answer. She knows when it is her turn to speak. This moment did not come from nowhere. A few years earlier, marine biologist David Gruber sits alone in his office at Harvard's Radcliffe Institute with headphones on. He is reviewing old sperm whale recordings he collected while studying jellyfish in the Caribbean. The sounds coming through his headphones are rapid mechanical clicks, firing one after another with specific gaps between them. He has heard them hundreds of times. Every single time he takes his headphones off and moves on. He assumes those sounds are nothing. Background noise from an animal he believes science figured out long ago. Then, MIT cryptographer Shafi Goldwasser walks past his open office door and stops dead in her tracks. She stands there listening for a moment. She looks at Gruber and tells him it sounds like Morse code. She asks if he has tried using machine learning to decode it. Goldwasser has spent her entire career breaking actual encrypted government communications, the kind countries use to hide their most sensitive secrets from each other. When she hears those whale clicks, something in her professional instincts fires immediately. She is telling Gruber that what is coming through his headphones has the same hidden structure as a coded message. Gruber sits there for a moment because she is right. Nobody had. In all the decades of whale research, nobody had run those sounds through a decoder. The clicks had been sitting there the whole time, ignored, waiting for someone who knew what a hidden code looked like to walk past an open door. Before any machine is even built, before any AI processes a single recording, the ocean has already sent researchers a warning. Researcher Oscar Palacios and his team are in the Galapagos Islands running an acoustic tracking study on a pod of 25 sperm whales. The study is going well. 2 weeks in, they have solid data, and the whales are vocalizing normally. Then one day, it all stops, not gradually, not one whale going quiet and then another. All 25 whales go silent at the exact same moment. Then they are gone. The whales vanish without a trace. The researchers reach a conclusion that should have ended the project right there. They believe the pod figured out the underwater microphones were there. They believe the whales recognized they were being monitored, discussed it amongst themselves, and made a group decision to stop making any sound at all. 25 animals coordinating a collective silence in direct response to human surveillance. These creatures became aware that humans were listening to them long before humans had any idea what they were saying. The machine that read the ocean.
In the next 5 years, our team of AI specialists, roboticists, linguists, and marine biologists aim to use the most cutting-edge technologies to make contact with another species.
Goldwasser's question in that hallway started something that could not be stopped. Answering it required a machine powerful enough and a data set large enough to read an entire ocean. The question led to a third person, AI researcher Michael Bronstein. He explained that the same deep learning technology powering tools like ChatGPT could theoretically be applied to animal communication. There was one condition: you needed enough data. That single requirement became the driving force behind the most ambitious marine biology project ever attempted. In 2020, the effort is officially named Project CETI, Cetacean Translation Initiative. Cetacean is the scientific word for the family of animals that includes whales and dolphins. The project pulls in researchers from MIT, Harvard, UC Berkeley, and 15 other institutions. The goal is staggering. Use artificial intelligence to decode what sperm whales are saying to each other. The team chooses the Caribbean island of Dominica as their base. This stretch of ocean is one of the very few places on Earth where multi-generational sperm whale families return year after year. These are not anonymous animals passing through. The families are known. The matriarchs have names. Their social hierarchies have been mapped across decades. This is the closest thing to a whale neighborhood science has ever found. What the team deploys there is unlike anything ever used in marine biology. They install hydrophone arrays, networks of underwater microphones permanently positioned along whale migration routes. They develop biologger tags that attach directly to the skin of whales using suction cups. Each tag carries 3 synchronized microphones capable of separating individual voices in a group conversation. The tags also record GPS location, depth, water temperature, and accelerometers tracking every shift in the whale's body. The system records who is speaking, who they are speaking to, and what they are physically doing at that exact moment. Every piece of context that could give meaning to a sound is captured at the same time as the sound itself. 9,000 recordings go into the AI. For decades, scientists thought they had sperm whale communication figured out. They believed sperm whales used roughly 21 distinct click patterns called codas, each one with a single fixed meaning, like a traffic light. Red means stop. Green means go. Yellow means slow down. 3 signals. Each one means one thing and one thing only. That is what the textbook said. What the AI finds tears all of it to pieces. It finds 156 distinct codas. That number alone is not the most disturbing part. What makes the researchers go quiet is what is buried inside each one. Every single coda has 4 internal parts that can each be changed and mixed together to shift what it means. The first is tempo, how fast or slow the clicks come out. The second is rhythm, the gap between each individual click, whether the clicks are bunched close together or spread apart. The third is ornamentation, extra clicks added into the middle of a pattern that change its meaning, the same way adding one word to a sentence flips what the whole sentence is saying. The fourth is rubato, tiny changes in timing that add feeling to the sound. These 4 parts are the working engine of an entire communication system. They can be mixed and layered to build meanings no single click could carry alone. Scientists call this duality of patterning, building unlimited meaning from a small number of basic pieces. It was supposed to be something only humans could do. The AI just found it happening in an animal clicking away in the pitch black, a mile underwater. Out of those 156 codas, researchers have quietly identified one specific pattern they believe they actually understand. It is called the 1 + 1 + 3. 2 isolated clicks, a brief pause, 3 faster clicks. It is the most commonly documented coda across Caribbean sperm whale families. It appears before deep dives, after surfacing, during group gatherings, at births. Researchers propose it means something close to "I am here," the first decoded message in 30 million years. Just presence. Just one living thing telling another that it exists. That phrase has been transmitted between sperm whales millions of times in a language we could not read while we were hunting them. That was the first message. There were others. And what the AI found next was not a greeting. What they have been saying about us.
Before they hunt and when they socialize. So we think that there might be more meaning to their communications.
If a species we hunted to near extinction has been transmitting messages about humans across every ocean on Earth, that is something more people need to hear. Hit subscribe and tap the bell. What comes next is what they have actually been saying. These animals have been watching us for centuries. They have not been quiet about what they have seen. On November 20th, 1820, the American whale ship Essex is moving through the Pacific Ocean, roughly 1,500 nautical miles west of the Galapagos Islands. The crew is hunting sperm whales for their oil. It is a routine day until first mate Owen Chase spots something in the water that makes him go cold. An unusually large bull sperm whale is sitting still on the surface with its head pointed directly at the ship, not swimming, not diving, still, staring. The bull starts moving toward the Essex. Slowly at first, then faster, then full speed. It drives its enormous head straight into the side of the ship with a force so violent the entire vessel lurches sideways and sends men sprawling across the deck. Before they can recover, the whale surfaces, turns around, and comes back. It hits the Essex again in the same spot, deliberately. The front of the ship is destroyed. 20 men throw themselves into 3 small open boats with almost no food, almost no fresh water, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. What follows is 83 days that strip them of everything. Only 8 of the original 20 men make it back alive. This event becomes the direct inspiration for Moby Dick. What most people do not know is this. Right before the attack, the crew had been doing repair work on a damaged whaleboat, hammering wood and metal in rapid strikes against the hull. Those hammering sounds, striking in fast repeated patterns against the boat, may have sounded to the bull like sperm whale click patterns coming from inside the vessel. If that theory is correct, the whale did not attack a ship out of rage or confusion. It attacked something it believed was making whale sounds. It heard what it thought was a signal, and it responded. The Essex was not the last. The whale ship Anne Alexander is rammed and sunk by a sperm whale in 1851. The whale ship Kathleen is rammed and sunk in 1902. Whaler logbooks from the 18th and 19th centuries are full of accounts of sperm whales crushing small hunting boats with their heads and jaws after being harpooned. Coordinated responses from animals with the largest brains on Earth. Then comes the number that changed everything. Within 2.5 years of whalers arriving in new Pacific hunting grounds in the 1800s, the successful harpoon strike rate dropped 58%. The whales did not move to a different ocean. They started getting away. The whales that survived early attacks transmitted the danger through their language to animals that had never seen a whaling ship. Animals living thousands of miles away changed their behavior based on information they received through clicks and codas from whales they may never have met. Historian Bathsheba DeMuth at Brown University dug through old whaling journals and found entry after entry where whalers described the shift with real unease. The animals appeared to be talking to each other. Their behavior had clearly been learned from somewhere. The whalers could feel it happening. They had no way to explain it, until now. Old whaling journals described something else that none of those sailors could ever explain. After a whale was harpooned and dying at the surface, the rest of the pod would go still. The clicking would start again, intense and unlike anything the whalers had heard before. They wrote it off as distress noise. Now that we know these animals have 156 codas, a working grammar, and the ability to tailor what they say to specific individuals, that explanation no longer holds. What were they transmitting in those moments? Were they speaking their grief out loud? Were they sending a warning across the ocean to every whale within range? Were they making a record of what had just happened, passing it to family members too far away to see it with their own eyes? Nobody knows. Those sounds were never decoded. They were heard by frightened men on wooden ships who wrote them down and moved on. In 2020, something new begins off the Iberian coast of Spain and Portugal. Orcas start targeting sailing vessels. They target rudders specifically, biting them. bending them, snapping them off. Without a rudder, a boat cannot steer. By 2024, there are at least 500 documented incidents and 3 confirmed capsized vessels. Marine biologists trace the behavior to a single origin point. A female orca believed to have suffered a traumatic encounter with a boat in 2020. She taught the technique to other orcas in her pod. They taught others. Within months, the behavior spread through the wider population. Animals that had never experienced the original trauma were learning a targeted, specific anti-boat technique through social transmission. Through language, 30 scientists signed an open letter urging the public not to project human motivations onto the orcas. They also wrote that each orca population has its own culture, different vocalizations, prey preferences, hunting techniques, social structures. Science cannot yet explain why they are doing this. The explanation is in a language we cannot fully read. The AI was asked to identify which codas appeared most often after a hunting incident, which click sequences propagated furthest from the site of an attack, which patterns showed up in pods that had no direct contact with whalers. The data showed transmission, specific codas spreading across ocean basins after specific events. The whales that survived our hunts were telling other whales something about us, specific enough that animals who had never seen a ship knew to flee from one. The first message was, "I am here." The next set of messages, the ones the AI traced moving across the Pacific in the wake of every harpoon, were about humans. The exact translation has not been published. Researchers will say only that they involve patterns associated with predator avoidance, and that the patterns specifically encode something about ships, about the surface, and about the species that emerges from above. One member of the team set off the record that what they found was the kind of message you do not want to be on the receiving end of. These animals have been transmitting warnings about humans across 30 million years of language and 70 years of memory. Commercial whaling killed hundreds of thousands of sperm whales across the 20th century. Ship strikes still kill dozens every year. If sperm whales transmit cultural knowledge across generations, if they pass down the memory of being hunted, then every ship that struck a whale and kept moving did not just kill an animal, it silenced a speaker mid-sentence. The sound that should not exist.
These animals could be the most intelligent beings on this planet. They have a neocortex and spindle cells, structure that in humans control higher order thoughts, emotions, memory, language, and love.
One researcher at UC Berkeley was about to look inside those 9,000 recordings at a level no one had tried before. What he found ripped out the last thing humans had been standing on. Linguist Gasper Bagus slowed the recordings way down and looked at the precise shape of each sound. What he saw made the foundational assumptions of his entire field shake. The whales were producing vowels, not sounds similar to vowels, structurally identical to them. Bagus found 2 main types. The first is what researchers now call the A coda, acoustically identical to the A sound in the word father. The second is the I coda, matching the E sound in the word see. He also found diphthongs, gliding double vowel combinations like the oi sound in boy, where one vowel slides smoothly into another. When the recordings are slowed down and the sound shapes mapped, they look like exact acoustic matches for human vowels. Bagus says it plainly. In the past, researchers thought of whale communication as a kind of Morse code. This paper shows their calls are more like very, very slow vowels. This suggests a complexity that approaches human language. Producing vowels is not simple. It requires a specific set of body parts that evolved together over millions of years, specifically for speech. A descended larynx, the voice box sitting lower in the throat than in other animals. Precise tongue and jaw musculature, controlled airflow through a resonance chamber, a shaped hollow space in the throat that acts like a tuning instrument. In humans, all of this evolved over millions of years under specific evolutionary pressure towards spoken language. That combination of anatomy was considered uniquely human. Sperm whales have none of that anatomy. Their vocal system evolved in the deep ocean, in pitch darkness, under thousands of pounds of water pressure, for a different purpose. It evolved for echolocation, sending sound beams into the dark and using the echoes that bounce back to build a picture of the surrounding environment, the way a bat navigates at night. They did not evolve toward language. They evolved toward something that, when analyzed by the most advanced acoustic equipment available, looks functionally identical to it. This is convergent evolution. Two species on different evolutionary paths with no shared ancestor for hundreds of millions of years independently arrived at the same complex solution. Dr. Daniela Roos from MIT said their results show there is much more complexity here than previously believed, that this is challenging the current state-of-the-art beliefs about the animal world. The disturbing part is, in the press releases, nobody publishes the anatomy that produces these vowel-like codas, the spermaceti organ sitting inside the whale's enormous head, the phonic lips at the front of its nose. The entire nasal complex is the exact same system that produces its killing click. Sperm whales are the loudest animals on Earth. Their clicks reach 230 decibels underwater, the loudest biological sound ever recorded on this planet. A jet engine at close range registers 140 decibels. Human eardrums begin to rupture at 150. At 180 decibels, internal organs start to suffer damage. At the recorded peak output of a sperm whale at close range, researchers describe the sound as physically capable of vibrating a human body apart from the inside. Ocean journalist James Nestor documented a diver whose arm went numb for nearly 4 hours after a whale buzzed him at moderate range. The organ that produces those gentle structured vowel-like codas is the exact same organ that can silently destroy a human body without the whale ever making physical contact. The language and the weapon live in the same place. The AI also found something the press releases mention but do not dwell on. The same whale produces different communication styles depending on who it is talking to. Audience design. In human language, this is the feature that lets you speak differently to a child than to a judge. Soften a message for someone who is hurting. Audience design requires a model of another individual's mind, understanding that the other being has a perspective separate from your own. The AI found theory of mind embedded inside click sequences in an animal we had been treating as producing noise. What they say in the dark.
I became interested in sperm whales when I heard their sounds. They sounded like they were coming from another universe, a siren song being broadcast from the darkest reaches of the sea.
Marine biologist Shane Garrow has spent 13 years living alongside sperm whales in Dominica. He has seen a mother whale click back and forth with another female, then dive deep to hunt. Her baby stays behind with the other whale. Garrow says the most accurate read of what is happening is this: "Watch my child, I will be back." At the surface, he has watched younger whales circle each other, clicking over one another, nudging, responding. Cousins playing, talking. Some exchanges last up to an hour. They take turns, they interrupt each other. They respond to what was just said. Louder voices, quieter ones. Sometimes it sounds like disagreement, other times like reassurance. Different whale clans do not just sound different. They follow different rules, different ways of building their cliques. They are not born with it. They learn it, the way human language is learned. You can tell exactly which group a whale belongs to just by how it speaks. These groups are massive, tightly bonded, some of the largest social groups on Earth outside humans. They hunt in darkness, nearly 2 miles down. No light, no landmarks, only sound. They move together, coordinate dives, herd prey, stay in sync across huge distances. Real-time communication in pitch black. Then there is the grief. Sperm whale mothers have been documented carrying the bodies of their dead calves through the water, refusing to let them go. In 2018, an orca named Tahlequah pushed her dead newborn calf along the Pacific coast for 17 days and more than 1,000 miles. The calf had lived for only 30 minutes. Every time the small body slid off the top of her head, she dove back down to retrieve it. During those 17 days, a tight group of female pod members gathered around Tahlequah and held close to her for over 2 hours, pressing in, staying still, surrounding her. Researcher Robin Baird said the animals go through a period where they are experiencing the same kinds of emotions you or I would when a loved one dies. At least 20 species of cetaceans worldwide have been documented doing this, carrying their dead, circling them, refusing to leave. Scientists call it epimeletic behavior. During every one of those vigils, the whales are vocalizing. The recordings exist. The clicks exchanged between a grieving mother and the females pressing close around her have been captured on hydrophones. Nobody can read them yet, We know they are not random noise. They are structured, combinatorial, built from vowel-like sounds, and a grammar the AI has fully mapped. Whatever a sperm whale says to its family in those moments is a real thing being said in a real language. We do not know what it is. Industrial shipping fills the world's oceans with relentless engine noise. Military sonar sends shock waves through the deep. Seismic blasting from fossil fuel operations and deep sea mining detonates through every ocean basin continuously. For an animal that lives in a world where sound replaces sight entirely, where every family conversation, every hunt coordination, every grief vigil happens through an acoustic channel, this is not pollution in any ordinary sense. At high enough intensities, industrial underwater noise causes internal bleeding and permanent hearing loss. Researchers have written it without softening it. A deaf whale is a dead whale. They watched 2/3 of their entire species get wiped out and kept talking. They watched the ocean fill with noise that tore their world apart and kept talking. A sperm whale can live 70 years. The matriarch of a family alive in the Caribbean tonight was born before underwater sonar existed. She has spent her entire life transmitting knowledge to her daughters and granddaughters, the best hunting grounds, the safest migration routes, the dangers to avoid, the species that comes from above the surface. She remembers the sounds of harpoon strikes from her own mother's stories. She remembers them in a language the AI has now mapped, but not yet fully translated. She is talking right now. As you watch this, 2 miles below the surface in pitch black water, her daughters are answering. Her granddaughters are listening. Somewhere in those clicks is the message researchers found and have not found the courage to publish, the one about us. She is mid-sentence. She has not stopped. She is not going to. If you could ask the whales one question and actually get an answer back, what would it be? Drop it in the comments. The next decoded message has not been released yet. When it is, the video covering it goes up here first. Subscribe so it finds you the moment it surfaces.